Then I realize what it is. There's a man in back of this place. He's the one who's doing it. I can see him through the wall. I hope that I never see that face. He's the one who's doing it. I can see him through the wall.
Well, boys, I'm back. You really thought that I was done milking Jason Paige. Not him milking the drama. Not Jason specifically, because that would be, you know, be a little gay. Well, I thought I was done milking him too, but then I found a very suspicious eBay listing, and it sent me down a rabbit hole ridden with market manipulation and shilling. Now, I'm not going to break down every single thing that he has done in the past. I already covered him extensively. You guys already know my opinion about him, about how he prices signatures, about how he interacts with fans, his involvement in the secondary market, and how off-putting it is. However, today's main topic is addressing one of the main defenses that people use for Jason Paige, and that is the demand for his cards, and whether that demand is fake. Now, despite there being a disparity between how much Jason Paige charges for his signatures and what they sell for on the secondary market, many people like to use it as a defense for him, saying that Jason Paige is not wrong for trying to capitalize on very abundantly clear demand for his autograph.
And when you look through some of those sold listings, you might be surprised. Jason Paige's autograph sells regularly, and in some cases, it sells for a lot. Desirable cards that are already big chases seem to be going up quite a bit just because his autograph is on there. Now, when I first saw those numbers, I was skeptical, I have to admit. While it's uncommon, there are times when people will pay their friends or do other unconventional things to try to raise comps on something artificially. But then the first listing I clicked on coincidentally was sold by somebody that I know. James from Vivid. Someone I vend alongside almost every single weekend and trust. I don't think there's any way he would engage in any sketchy business with Jason Paige or anyone else to artificially raise comps.
Now, of course, no hate to this person. Matter of fact, his video was very well constructed, very fair and unbiased. However, when I saw these listings, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. I was surprised that somebody was willing to pay such a massive premium just for a card to be signed by Jason Paige. So, because of that, I decided to do some investigating. And oh boy, am I glad that I did. It all started when I searched the same exact listing that I saw in the previous video I showed. A Diamond and Pearl Secret Wonders Charizard graded not as a PSA 10, but as an Auto 10, meaning they just grade the signature, not the card itself. This card ended up selling on May 11th, and my friend pointed out that the seller is actually Jason Paige. Confirmed, by the way, by the description. Now, given how much Jason Paige dabbles in the secondary market, this isn't really surprising. But it certainly presents a conflict of interest. But taking that odd suspicion aside, I couldn't help but feel that I've seen this card somewhere before. Lo and behold, I look at the sold auction listings and I see the same exact card sold on June 3rd for $710 by an account named Chrislow2213. At first, I thought it was another graded Charizard similar to the one that Jason Paige sold, but I looked at the cert number and it was 100% match. Now, doing some quick math and also deducting the 7-day auction period, that would mean that this account started the auction only 12 days after receiving this card that he bought from Jason Paige's account. Does that sound like your average buyer? But let's just give the benefit of the doubt and say that this guy only bought Jason Paige's Charizard card just to do a quick flip, just to make some money. Well, I guess that would make sense, but it makes a lot less sense because this same account listed the same card once again, and it sold for $558 on June 10th. And again, if you factor in the 7-day auction period, that would mean that Chrislow listed it right away after his original listing sold for $710. There could be a few reasons for this. Maybe the buyer who bought the Charizard from Chrislow didn't really want it, so Chrislow relisted it. That would make some sense, but eBay did change their policy recently on May 13th, requiring the bidders to pay one way or another, unless the seller himself decided to cancel the order. So I feel the most probable option is that Chryslow relisted the card because he wasn't happy at the price that it sold for. Unfortunately for him, though, it sold for a lot less the second time around. I actually reached out to Chryslow and baited him with a question which he replied to, and then I pointed out the obvious suspicious sold history of this card. It's been around 7 days and he still hasn't replied to me, and probably even more depending on when you're watching this video. Now, I'm not saying that Jason Paige is involved, but I do find something very suspicious about this whole card. Almost premeditated. But at the very least, if that card sold 2 separate times at not even 1/5 of the original price, then should we really be using this sale as a benchmark to evaluate Jason Paige's signature, or to exemplify the demand for his signature? Now, some will say, well, you're just nitpicking listings. Don't you see how many of them were sold on the secondary market? This is a testimony to the demand. And yeah, I've seen how many there are, but I have proof to show that the demand isn't as much as you would think if you went on eBay and the sold listings. I spent roughly 3 days trying to compile the data on sold auctions for Jason Paige signed cards, because I wanted to see who was bidding on these cards. And I found a very suspicious pattern. You see, throughout a good portion of the 81 confirmed sold auctions for Jason Paige signed cards, I keep seeing the same 2 accounts over and over and over again. So I decided to go through all the bidding history and keep track of every single account that was bidding and how many times they appear on other listings simultaneously. And the data is kind of fucking crazy. Here is a graph of every single individual account that bid on a Jason Paige related listing over the last 3 months. Quite obviously, there are 2 accounts that stand out: 1203 and 306. Just 1203 alone bid on 34 of the 81 auctions, which accounts for roughly 42%. And 306 seems a bit similar. Just those 2 people alone account for 80% of the bidder activity for sold auction Jason Paige signed cards. The difference is even starker when I show you a chart tracking the individuals who ended up actually purchasing the cards they bid on. Not surprisingly, the same 2 accounts were at the top. Only this time, 1203 was the clear winner with almost 30 auctions won, and not a single person was close. 306 seems like an account specifically designed to bid up the price of the listings, if I had to guess, and 1203 appears to be the one responsible for actually purchasing them. Not only that, but the behavior of these 2 accounts seem very robotic. For example, account 1203 was the only bidder on the entire listing. They placed their one and only bid at $729.59 on a listing that was going to end at 7:30 exact. 1 second before the auction closed. No competition to react to, no other bidder to trigger a proxy response. They simply waited 5 whole days and placed a single bid in the final second. Example 2, with 34 seconds left on the clock, account 36 placed the opening bid at the 98.99 starting price. 32 seconds later, account 1203 swoops in and won. Those are the only 2 bidders across the entire 5-day listing. You might think eBay's proxy bidding system could explain the automatic bid increments, but it cannot explain why account 1203 waited until 34 seconds before close to place any bid at all. After 5 days of silence, both accounts went dark for the entire auction and became active only at the very end. Example 3 is a very similar instance. 1203 appeared at 7:37.59, exactly 1 second before the listing closed, and 1203 won. Example 4 is by far the weirdest one because account 306 was the only bidder. They placed the exact same bid at the starting price 3 separate times at 7:35.10, then again at 7:36.12, then again at 7:37.22. Same amount 3 times, roughly 1 minute apart from each other. Why would a human place the same bid 3 times on a listing, especially when no one else is competing with them? So the obvious question is, are these bots and are they shill bidding on these listings? If that's the case, then who exactly is behind this? And what do they benefit out of it? To answer that question, we have to look at the data I created about the sellers out of the 81 auctions. who they are, and the disproportionate amount that one sells. Out of all the graphs that I gave, this is by far the craziest because 72 out of the 81 auctions were listed by the same exact account. The best deal of the day. What's even crazier is that account 1203 and 306 only bid and bought from this same exact account. But the weirder thing is that this account has a lot of feedback, 22,000 to be exact. And he's been around on eBay since 1997. Was sold over 38,000 items and is a top rated seller. So how does he exactly benefit from this? Because Jason Paige's signatures, compared to the 38,000 listings that he had sold, this is just a drop in the bucket for him. Why would he even waste his time creating other accounts to shill on his own listing? Now, I ended up asking the eBay seller, and well, he fucking ghosted me again. I swear to God, it's like Tinder by the way these people are ghosting me. However, I'm not ruling out the possibility that this seller is potentially using shill bidders and trying to conduct some market manipulation. Because the matter of the fact is, roughly 90% of all sold auctions for Jason Paige related items have strictly been listed by this account. This could be explained by saying that this is what happens when you have a big seller going into a very small market and offloading his supply. How is he exactly benefiting from Jason Paige cards going up in value? Unless he has a massive stockpile of Jason Paige related signatures, which he got for a good price, and is intending on shilling up that so he could offload even more of his stock at a premium price. Could also be Jason Paige himself, by the way, since he benefits the most from forcing his signature to have value on the secondary market, since he could just simply print them. He's like the Federal Reserve of his own currency. So it's in his best interest to keep the demand or the illusion of demand for his signature alive on the secondary market. But also, if it was Jason Paige, wouldn't it be in his best interest if he bid up the price even more than the price he charges for it? Unless he doesn't have enough money. Or he could even be colluding with the seller himself. And another theory is that maybe you have a completely independent person that has a massive stockpile of Jason Paige cards, shilling up the value of these cards so then he could offload them. Now, the thing is, no matter which route you take, maybe you say Jason Paige is the one behind this, maybe you say that the eBay seller is behind this, maybe you say it's an independent person behind this as well. No matter which road you take, all roads lead back to Rome, which is to say that the prices are fabricated by someone or something. And speaking of fabricated prices, shill bidding, and market manipulation, coincidentally, a base set Pikachu signed card was sold on Golden Auctions for $5,800 a day after Jason Paige responded to the controversy of him scamming kids. Yes, the same auction house that facilitated the auction of Logan Paul's $16 million Illustrator Pikachu, which was totally legit, by the way. I'm sure there was no circle jerking shill bidding going on. Now, the reason I thought this was suspicious is not only because it's Golden Auctions, which already is suspicious, that's the first red flag, but it's the fact that this Pikachu card is at best only worth $400 to $600. And by the way, we can't even use a PSA 10 price for this because this isn't a PSA 10. This is an auto 10. And the autograph itself isn't even Jason Paige's premium autograph. This is the lower tier one that Jason Paige charges $50 for. So even in the best case scenario, using the PSA 10 price for the base set Pikachu and also using the $50 price that Jason Paige arbitrarily assigned to his signature, we're at $550. I would at least hope that Jason Paige would see this auction and find it a bit suspicious. You know what? Maybe he would be the bigger person in the situation and call out market manipulation and opportunistic shill bidding when he sees it. Surely he wouldn't try to publicize this auction in any sort of way. That would be quite dumb. Oh, wait, he did? Oh, that's crazy. So he publicized this auction knowing full well that that card isn't worth $5.8 thousand. And no, just because one person bought one thing for an X amount, that does not mean that that is worth X amount. So I decided to do some investigative work and contacted Golden Auctions asking whether the buyer actually paid for this card or not. It took a little back and forth, but they confirmed that a payment was received. So with all these pieces on the board, including the suspicious Charizard sales, including the suspicious bot accounts, including the Pikachu sale, what is the main conclusion from all of this? Well, for one, even using the secondary market, there's an obvious disparity between what Jason Paige charges for his signature and what it actually sells for. And even with that being said, the prices on the secondary market seem to be influenced by a small minority of people. So if a small minority of people are essentially shilling the prices, and if regular people end up buying into that, is that actually demand? I don't think so. I think it's fabricated demand. And by the way, this is just the data from the auctions alone. Just imagine finding out who purchased the buy it now listings of Jason Paige related cards. Who knows what you would find? Who knows the suspicious accounts that ended up buying it? If this is publicly available data, just imagine what is happening behind the scenes when no one else is looking. So when you buy a Jason Paige card for any amount, is it really valued that? How authentic is that price? Did the market decide it? Or did a small group of people trick you into validating that price? Just to clarify, this isn't just a problem for Jason Paige, this is a broader problem encompassing the Pokemon TCG sphere as well. You have massive market manipulation groups targeting specific cards to hyperinflate the value, hoping a buyer is stupid to validate it, then selling their stock. This is a rug pull. Blatant rug pull. It happens all the time. And by the way, just because somebody manipulates somebody into validating a price, that does not necessarily mean it's inherently worth that price. The means in which that value is created is very important. A card that was manipulated into being $100 overnight, then validated by a buyer, well, that is going to be significantly less potent than a card that was over time evaluated at $100 and bought from a buyer at $100. I've always spoken about market manipulation and shill bidding. So the main reason I'm creating this video is to instill a simple question in your little noggin. When you see a Jason Paige related card, you need to ask yourself, is this fabricated? Who is setting these prices? Who benefits? And exactly why? That's it. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you later, weebs.